Barry is a renowned neurosurgeon and the current director of Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Science and Technology, Trivandrum. Prior to leading this prestigious institute, he held the position of additional professor and unit head of neurosurgery at the Sanjay Gandhi Postgraduate Institute for Medical Science in Lucknow. I invite Dr. Sanjay Behari for the presidential address.
Good morning. First of all, I welcome Mrs. Meldal to this august gathering. I mean, behind every successful man is a very strong lady who actually guides and drives him. So I think she deserves a big hand here. I welcome Professor Morten Meldal, Nobel Laureate and a world-famous chemical engineer, whose very presence in this august gathering serves as a source of inspiration for all of us. We welcome you, sir, and look forward to your inspiring lecture. I am grateful to Professor K.P. Sudhir, eminent professor of IIT Chennai and Principal Secretary, Science and Technology, Government of Kerala, and Executive Vice President, Kerala State Council for Science, Technology and Environment, for all his science-based initiatives that have gone a long way in enhancing the science-based ecosystem of the state of Kerala. I have come from another state, and I can tell you that I have never seen an environment like this where so much of emphasis is placed on promotion of science. I congratulate the society. I'm also honored by the presence of Padma Shri Chandranathan sir, the chairman, previous chairman of ISRO, the ISRO, and the person who's responsible for Chandrayaan-1. I mean, the vital decisions which the organization has taken and which he has taken individually has actually instilled the pride of the country in science and technology. And thank you, sir, for being here. I've been a neurosurgeon, which means a brain and spine surgeon, for almost 40 years now. So in a real world situation, the day you complete your education, dear children, is the day that your real education starts. Till then, your teachers guide you. They take you forwards. But when you complete your education, that's when your real education starts. And I'd like to share with you the 7 tenets that I learned along the way during my career. The first of them is the unidimensionality of education. I have realized that the education system and the method of evaluation is very, very unidimensional. Students with good learning and writing skills and acceptable language and social skills automatically do better. Ultimately, the endeavor is to get more marks, and this becomes the leading goal of one's existence. Amongst my students of neurosurgery, also numbering more than 100 who are now professors in various universities, all of them came as very accomplished students and high achievers, having completed not less than 100 exams. Looking back at their career trajectories, I have realized that those with practical knowledge, determination, and a well-rounded personality, and those who do not immediately hesitate to take up responsibility and form a team to accomplish a task, do much better than those who focus only on gaining bookish knowledge with the sole aim of performing well in examinations. So forming a team, working in environments is the key to success. Please remember, life does not run on examination results or on your curriculum vitae, degrees or certificates. It runs on dogged pursuit of dreams, no matter what adversities one faces. The resilience, tenacity, and determination in an individual to combat the surprises that will inevitably crop up actually determine professional success. The future is always throwing curveballs at us. And the best way to insulate yourself from these surprises is to diversify as much as you can. Please change from a unidimensional person to a multidimensional person. My second point is seeking immersive experience. Being an active neurosurgeon, I've often wondered why there is hardly any disruptive process in the ergonomics as well as the instrumentation of the operation room over decades that I have worked there. Now I'm heading an institute of national importance that is leading the biomedical research in the country. I have realized that whenever I'm invited as an expert for choosing projects, that researchers in various parts of the institution are wanting to apply for grants. They are working on nearly the same subjects for research, and the medical device projects which come from CSIR, this science agency, that they're almost exactly the same. Why is this happening? They have actually, the scientists and engineers have never entered the actual environment to focus on the relevant needs of the doctors. The doctors, in turn, are also never trying to have a long-term association with the scientists and engineers to make devices and processes that will be relevant to them. Therefore, consciously seek experiences that are completely different from the ones that you already have. Books, classroom teaching, and internet education are important, but from your perspective, the information that emerges from them is second-handed. They represent somebody else's experience. The second-handedness of these experiences are responsible for their mediocrity. When you have immersed yourself in a new and unique situation, you will find solutions that are your own, based on your present thoughts, your previous experiences, and your responses based on what you perceive your future to be. Think about it. You go for a holiday to seek a change in your daily routine and try new things out in a new place. Seek a holiday from your professional routine by trying new things with new people in new professional environments. Not only will you grow in experiences, but you will also innovate, accept differences, and work together to create new pastures. My third point is fail early and fail fast. This being said to a group of students is a very strange thing. Fail early and fail fast. Success undoubtedly brings accolades, increases confidence, and creates several new opportunities. However, there is a problem. In an attempt to maintain a string of successes in your life, you repeat the same things over and over and over again and stop taking risks. And that leads to a stalemate in life, that of not trying different things, and that not of failing multiple times in order to master a new technique. Thus, what happens is that other risk takers eventually overtake you as the products and services you offer become obsolete over time and are no longer considered relevant and unique. Therefore, the mantra is to fail early and fail fast, and then improve, to fail again, but fail better this time. And what is the definition of experience? It is a series of bad experiences, along with all your successes. Soon the cumulative effect of all your failures as you try new vistas will make you a person of great experience, whom everyone seeks, because you have done more things in a wide variety of fields than has anyone else. Take risks, innovate, and please do not be afraid to fail. Fourth, have faith in serendipity. You know, in the Japanese Zen philosophy, some of the people there will only form an enzo. An enzo is a perfect circle. So they will spend a lifetime only with a single brush, without taking their eyes off the paper or their hands from the paper, make a perfect enzo. Now, what is this philosophy of the enzo? You see, when you focus on a single point on the stroke of a circle, you do not know what it will lead to. Will it lead to a perfect circle?
Do not worry. Universe has a grand design for your masterstroke. Therefore, stop expecting results at every point while making your Enzo. Just relax and without expectations of any rewards, perform the masterstroke. Make a constant commitment to self-improvement. One day, the accumulation of all the points of the circle will lead to a perfect Enzo in your life, which will be your perfect Enzo. As Swami Vivekananda once said, do not fly. Look not for success or for failure. Join yourself in a perfectly determined will and work on. Anyone can keep calm in a cave or when asleep. Live in the midst of battle of life and reach the center. Once you have found your center, you cannot be moved. Fifth is a very important thing. Always acknowledge with reverence the unacknowledged people in your life. So I was in Trivandrum only. I was invited to a national event where almost 800 children selected from all parts of the country through a very rigorous academic competition filled the hall. So I asked them, name the people who have been responsible for your successes in the order in which you think they have contributed to your success. And as everybody in this hall will also agree, all 800 of them screamed enthusiastically in unison. They said, number 1, parents. Number 2, teachers. And number 3, friends. And in that order, I agree with them wholeheartedly. However, there is one group of people at your beck and call who have also been responsible for your successes. They have been responsible for making sure that you have devoted time to studies, extracurricular activities, and pursuing hobbies that have made you the well-educated person that you have become today. They are the household helpers, drivers, gardeners, cooks, and so on, who work tirelessly in your homes. Please realize that their background work has also been responsible for your successes. Be sure to always acknowledge their presence in your life and help them grow. When you are facing with an adversity, and I'm sure all senior people here will vouch for this statement, when you are facing an adversity, you will realize that they will come to your background help, often much more than your own dear relatives would in that particular situation. Sixth, happiness is an internal phenomenon. Your personal happiness does not depend on external factors. 95% of your happiness depends on your own thoughts, perceptions, and reactions to a particular situation. Your dreams create thoughts. Thoughts create action. Action create habits. Habits create a behavior. And consistent behavior creates a personality. No matter what external support and enticements you provide to a person who is constantly unhappy, he or she will not change their state of unhappiness. This is because these people have internalized their unhappiness till it has become a part of their DNA. Happiness is a state of the mind. What it means is that we can control our levels of happiness by purposefully entering the happiness state of our mind. A successful person is one who, despite all his problems, remains positive, happy, and true to himself or herself, and meets all adversities with equanimity. In parallel to the divine trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, which symbolize birth, preservation, and creative destruction, our holistic personality is encompassed by a triumvirate of intellectual, emotional, and spiritual dimensions. The cognitive aspects of our personality, measured by the intelligence quotient, is believed to be the sole determinant of success in all spheres of life. However, intelligence is a multi-dimensional construct comprising linguistic, mathematical, spatial, kinesthetic, musical, interpersonal, and naturalistic intelligences. Our career choices are often guided by commonly administered IQ, aptitude, and subject tests, disregarding the fact that individual aptitudes are unique. Nurturing a balanced interplay between intelligence quotient, emotional quotient, and spiritual quotient leads to holistic development, aligning the mind, matter, heart, and spirit, and fostering a sense of purpose, harmony, and interconnectedness with oneself, others, and the universe. My final point is point number 7. It's a shocking thing for a doctor to say. I will discuss the 3-death syndrome. What is this 3-death syndrome? Death is the only certainty in one's life. Everything else is uncertain. However, there are 3 times when a human being dies before his or her own death. Voltaire once said, "Every man is guilty of all the good things he did not do." The first death is the time that we reflect on those times when we could have made a difference with our intervention and initiatives, and yet we did not. That's the first death. Norman Cousins once said, "Death is not the greatest loss in life. The greatest loss is what dies inside us while we live." The death of one's spirit is the second death. When we lose your spirit, when you lose your fighting spirit, your combative spirit, that is your second death. The third death is the worst. It is cultivating indifference. Indifference to people around you, indifference to surroundings around you. Learned helplessness is when persons believe that the choices they have made no effect on the outcomes in their lives. Please remember, whatever small choice you make at every moment of your life has a direct effect on the final outcome of your life. So please make those choices wisely. Hope and enthusiasm can be powerful forces. Maybe there is no actual magic in it, but when you know what you hope for the most and hold it like a light within you, you can make things happen almost like magic. Every day tell yourself, since this is what I have always planned to do, and the opportunity is presenting itself, this will be my destiny. And then work hard to fulfill it. Suddenly and magically, you will discover that the whole universe will conspire to bestow upon you what you have thought to be your most unattainable dreams. Please do remember this all your life. My prayers and best wishes are always with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Behari, for your insightful address. And now, the moment we have been waiting for. The stage is set to welcome Professor Morten P. Meldal. Professor Morten P. Meldal is the Nobel Laureate in Chemistry in 2022 for his contribution to the click chemistry approach to building molecules. He is a professor at the University of Copenhagen and head of the Center of Evolutionary Chemical Biology. He did his PhD from Institute of Organic Chemistry, Technical University of Denmark, and postdoc from Cambridge University. Throughout his career, Meldal has remained at the forefront of innovation, developing an optical encoding technique and integrating organic chemistry with peptide chemistry on solid support. This is now a widespread using and is utilized in development of pharmaceutical for mapping DNA and creating new materials. For his discoveries, Meldal was awarded a share of 2022 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, which he shared with Professor Sharpless and American chemist Carolyn B. Bertozzi. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Professor Morten P. Meldal on the stage.
I would like to start by thanking Kerala State and my long time ago postdoc man at Renil and his wife for this fantastic support for going here to Kerala. It is a great honor. The honor is on my side, I would say, that India wants to hear about the Nobel medal in 2022 in chemistry. When you get a Nobel medal, this is the highest achievement a scientist can dream of. And I am very honored to share the Nobel medal with Carolyn Bertozzi and Barry Sharpless, good old friends of mine since back in 2000. And I have followed their work on the way, but we have never worked together. Actually, we have developed the click concept in 3 different areas. Barry Sharpless worked out here with small molecules. We worked here in the middle with intermediate-sized molecules, biomolecules of different kind, and Carolyn Bertozzi worked with cells and click reactions. And because of this width of the click reactions and its use and application in many, many different fields, it was appointed as a recipient of the Nobel Prize in 2022. And I think that's a pointer. It's a pointer that tells you where will research go in the future. So when you get a Nobel Prize, you are asked to have opinions about many other things than your own science, of course. And for that purpose, I've developed 4 mantras that I would like to elaborate a little bit on. And the first one is that chemistry is everything. And you may say that sounds funny, but it is actually everything around us. It's the air we breathe. It is when we feel tired. It is when we feel hungry. It's bradykinin when we have pain. It's oxytocin when it's empathy. So everything is keyed into chemical reactions, and in my opinion, even the psychological effects that we see around us is caused by chemical interactions. If chemistry is really everything, if it's the pavement of the roads, if it's the food that we eat, if chemistry is everything, we need to teach the young people chemistry, not as something you learn when you go to high school, but as a fundamental learning, just like writing and reading, because it's not only important to know where you want to choose your scientific field, it is important to everybody in the society to know a little bit about chemistry, and I'll come back to that in much more detail. Another thing is the young people have to learn this by a pleasurable method. It should not be hard formulas that teach us chemistry. It should actually be the teddy bear shaped molecules or chewing gum looking like molecules, how they really look in space and time that interact with each other and cause these kind of biological phenomena that we see, and even just physical things like rain and water evaporating. So therefore, I think that it's very important that we continue the lineage of using chemistry by allowing our researchers to do research without constraints. And that is because a lot of research tend to go into the applied region, but the real disruptive inventions, the Nobel Prizes of the future, lies in the serendipitous discoveries, the things that we cannot predict. That's where all the novelty is. And that means that it's very hard to make an application that goes 5 years into the future, and we have to decide what to do for the next 5 years. We cannot follow any side tracks that comes on the way and so on. And therefore, I also suggest that we have funding by performance instead of funding by blue sky idea applications. That takes a long time to prepare. So that is my 4 mantras, and I'll elaborate a little as I go along on these. From my point of view, interest in science starts early, and I got my interest simply by playing in these fields. This is the fields of my grandfather's farm, very privileged. I was out there on my own all day, came in at 9 o'clock in the evening, and I had a lot of experiences with nature in the meadows here, in the forest that you saw in the background. And one thing that puzzled me was how everything is so beautiful. How is it that nature is able to create this absolute harmony between things that really work together and create a living environment? And why is it that we humans cannot fit very well into that? So that I explained by chemistry, actually. So I think that chemistry is the course of all communication in nature, and the reason that nature looks like it does. And that is why my interest for chemistry came around at this very early age. You can see I don't look like a student yet. So what I'm looking for today in students is actually, as you just heard from Mr. Bihari, it's Dr. Bihari. It's not what I'm looking for. Is not the factual knowledge. What I'm looking for is your intuition, your ability to actually intuitively say, this is where I want to go because that is where the interest is. Your ability to put these pictures that you have in your mind, to put them together into even abstract constructions that allow you to do the research that is important. Your associations in the brain between different experiences, your observations, combination of different things that you want to, as you heard from Dr. Bihari, it's also about combining different fields from different areas together and be a multidisciplinary person. Are you creative? Can you really combine these and make entirely new things out of that? Can you collaborate? Can you construct this team that you also heard about? And can you then have the courage to tell your supervisor or your leader of the institute that they are absolutely wrong and that they have to follow your suggestion instead of their own? And that is where you actually get to the real point of your research. So that requires a lot of courage in many, many different forms. And then factual knowledge comes at the bottom, and it's not so important today as it was before, because we have such good instruments to acquire factual knowledge in no time. And I think that is a very important thing. On the other hand, I think we should use this instrument that we have and make even more knowledge available, in particular for the kids, as you will see. So the road, as you just heard, is never straight. It always leads to failure, in particular in science. Initially, you will always fail in your science projects. But don't despair. There is a solution if you can see it. And you cannot plan for this solution, so you have to actually look for the opportunities that is there in your projects. Where do I have to go next? How do I actually tell my supervisor I'm not going to do a stupid idea, I'm going to do this instead? This is really, really important. So many, many factors will determine your path to success, and you will fail, and then you will rise again with a vengeance. Because time is precious, and you need to press on. You only have one life, and that should be, as you just heard, a happy life. And happy lives are supported by your personal successes, not only towards the surroundings, but also towards yourself and your self-esteem, your own, what do you want? So you have to get out of your comfort zone once and again, because you really have to learn different things that are outside your own expertise. And I totally agree with Dr. Bihari on that. So that means that you even can change fields occasionally. If you are an NMR spectroscopist, maybe you should also learn some about MS, and maybe you should even do protein expression and do studies that are not normally what you would do, because that is actually where the connections in the brains are made. So you bring your experience to use in many different areas, and the study is a life experience. It's something you will continue to do all your life if you're a real student. So my start on my career was as an engineer. After I was an engineer, I went to the university for a couple of years, and then I ended up at Carlsberg Laboratory, which is at the time was an equivalent of a Max Planck Institute or similar. We had all the infrastructure required. We had very good financing and so on. So it allowed us, with the application to the Danish National Research Foundation, which was successful, we got a lot of money to study organic reactions on solid support, which means that instead of making chemistry in flasks, we are making small polymer spheres, and we are making the chemistry inside these small spheres and taking the molecules off at the end. I will not talk a lot about chemical formula, but I will give you the impression. I'll use illustrative examples where we use these teddy bears and chewing gums to show you what molecules do. There's one structure here, though, that is very important, and that is this network structure that you see up here in the blue corner. This is a polymer we developed, which is compatible with everything. It's compatible with cells, it's compatible with proteins, it's compatible with organic chemistry in unpolar solvents, in polar solvents, and so on. And this was a development, I'll come back to it in the next slide, but this is a development that facilitated this application to the Danish National Research Foundation and allowed us to do all these fantastic chemical reactions that you see here on solid support as efficiently as if it had been the assembly of a peptide or a DNA string. We could also do even enzymatic reactions because these polymers that you see here is not like closed polymer beads. It's open sponges where proteins can mobile and can move inside and carry out their functions inside the polymer. So we did a lot of enzymatic reactions in these polymers. We did also mostly proteolysis, but also glycosylations and things like protein folding and so on inside these resins. So these are the polymers. We have 4 different polymers here, and Manat Renil has been involved in some of this development. And we are very happy to have these polymers, which are the most prominent one that we use the most is Pega resin, but we also have resins that doesn't have the labile protons, which you see in the amide bonds. And these resins are very useful for us for organic chemistry, in particular carbonium and carbon ion chemistry. Here we go. So we can make these polymer beads very regularly in a flow synthesis. So we make like a T-piece, we put in the macromonomers, and they go into a silicone stream, and we collect the beads at the other end, like small droplets. And these are now polymerized, so they are stable polymer beads that we can use for our synthesis. So that's very convenient. That means that we have a whole platform now. The beads are the core of the platform. The other core is our combinatorial methods in which we can make 1 million beads, 1 million different compounds at the same time. This is through use of a small container. I'll show in the next slide how that works exactly. A small container where we can couple, mix, couple, mix, couple, mix until we have the final molecule. We then have on-bead screening, as you can see over here. We can see the blue beads in a background of green beads. And these blue beads are the active ones that interact with an enzyme. We pick them out and we can determine what did this enzyme do. Then we can make these substrates that are substrates for an enzyme. For example, in this case, it's an enzyme that is involved in inflammation, and we inject it here in the tail vein of a rat or mouse that has been artificially induced inflammation in one of the foot pads, and you can clearly see where the enzyme is most active. So we can use these as biochemical markers for enzymatic activity. We can also use these beads together with biologicals in a biological setting, these small polymer spheres. We can use them in a biological setting with cells because we can grow monolayers of cells, and I'll come back to that at the end of the lecture, where we can then investigate what does the cell do together with the compound on the bead. And we can isolate them, and then we have barcoding technology for telling us what compound is on each and every bead. So here is the combinatorial method. We do 20 couplings, we mix all the beads, we do another 20 couplings, we mix all the beads, and so on. And that builds one molecule on each small particle, so you can see each particle as a round bottom flask for chemistry. And in each of these beads we have a separate compound. We can then test that compound with our enzyme at the end. But what is it that gave us a Nobel Prize? This is a click reaction. It's a reaction between something called an alkyne, which is a triple bond between two carbon atoms. So there's a lot of electrons around the two carbon atoms. It's very electronegative compared to other bonds. And that looks for positive. So positive and negative always wants to find each other. That counts everywhere, also in molecular recognition and so on. So the copper atom, the copper 1 atom, is particularly useful for this interaction. It takes electrons out of the alkyne, make it acidic, and it takes the place of that little hydrogen atom there. Not much happened by that. But then a second copper 1 atom comes in, and it takes away the electrons. It's just, so this is a big bag of electrons, and it just takes away the electrons from this alkyne, opening it up, so to speak. So this is what we get. It's called a LUMO, but it's essentially just a sac without electrons in there. And you can see they're red and blue, so there's something that has to match. And it matches perfectly, absolutely perfectly, with the electron-rich bags of the A side. And that's why we can make an A side and an alkyne react with each other. So electrons are donated from the A side to the alkyne, and we are making new bonds. So this is what it looks like, and then it loses one of the two copper atoms. So it's a catalytic event because these copper atoms can travel to another side and make another reaction. And now we have connected this functionality here, with this functionality down here. What can we use that for? Here's shown a couple of proteins and a peptide as a cartoon. And we have now, this one up here can kill a cell. This one here can recognize this particular cell we want to kill. And this one here can enter into the cell. So what we can do with the click chemistry is to build molecular robots. A robot is characterized by multifunctional actions. A robot is a combination of actions that can lead to a result. And this is a molecular robot if we combine the three. So we support it with these three click residues inserted by something called amber stop codon expression. Don't worry about that. We can put them into proteins or into peptides by synthesis. Then we can steer them all together in this jar with copper 1. And what happens is that we get a single molecule out of this. So we isolate this molecule, and now we are ready to find the specific cell. It could be a cancer cell. We can enter into the cell, and we can effect program cell death by this method that we are developing. So I'd like to give a couple of examples of how we have actually used click chemistry. The reason is that I would like to illustrate what this can do. So this here is a creature that is 400 million years old, not these ones, but the species. And this is a Japanese horseshoe crab. It has an incredible immune system with blue blood that we isolate for medical use. It can measure bacteria in your blood. That's of course very interesting, but we were also interested in these small cannonballs that you see out here. These cannonballs they are the toxins that the horseshoe crab use to kill the bacteria once they are trapped. And they look like that. This is amino acids. It doesn't really look like that, but these are the one-letter codes for amino acids. They have a lot more functionality than you see here. And there are 2 disulfide bridges. Now we are replacing these 2 disulfide bridges with our triazole chemistry. Why would we do that? We would do that because then we are removing all the processing that the natural disulfide bridge has in the organism. So you cannot have resistance if you cannot, affect this resistance. We also discovered that we have these dimers where 2 molecules go together like that, hiding away all the toxic stuff, and only benign positive charges on the surface, swims around until it finds a negatively charged bacterial membrane. Then it assembles on the membrane, it opens up and forms this pore. And through this pore, all the interior of the bacteria swims out. And of course, that will kill the bacteria. So this is how this works, and it's a very good process because it's very hard to make resistance against this. We tried it against coli, staphylococcus epidemis, hospital-acquired staphylococcus, and Salmonella typhimurium, and Bacillus subtilis. So these are organisms that we really would like to be able to kill. And here is the result. So target-placing is actually very active in the 3 first bacteria, but in the 4th bacteria, the Bacillus subtilis, there's absolutely no activity. You see a very high cone there. And that is probably because this has a disulfide reduction going on, which can eliminate the toxicity of this antibiotic. But our triazole bridge molecules work perfectly throughout. There seems to be no tendency to resistance at all. And I would also like to enlighten you about what it is to have a week in Stockholm. It's like a travel to Alice in Wonderland. And you are collected by the airplane in a limousine and driven into the Nobel Museum, where you are oriented about all what is going to happen during the week. It's a very busy week. And then you deliver one thing that is very important for you. This here is the world's first multiple column synthesizer, something that every chemistry lab uses today, either for parallel or combinatorial synthesis. And this is now standing in Stockholm together with a paper describing it. And then I have my signature under a chair in the bar. I'm very proud because this is just beside Emmanuel Carpentier, one of my heroes. There are many, many heroes behind my work, I would say. So I would like now to shift gear a little bit. We have a project in which we try to simulate natural proteins, but using a mixture of D and L amino acids and all of the 5,000 amino acids that are commercially available. So this is an alternative to the natural proteins and their function. What we do is we start out by a randomized sequence with L and D amino acids, and we let it fold up in the computer. So this is computer-based. We let it fold up by molecular dynamics. It makes a sort of a tight little ball. And then we start optimizing this fold that we generate with a hydrophobic core, hydrophilic surface, and residues to carry out enzymatic activity. So in the natural proteins, you have very large proteins to carry out a very small function. The reason to that is finance. Finance in nature is about energy. It costs too much energy to use too many of these building blocks for nature, so it has a compromise. We don't need to have that compromise. We can go anywhere we like with synthesis. So that's what we are doing. And here's 4 serine proteases that we have, actually 3 serine proteases and a scandium protease that we have made. The serine protease I will focus on is this one up here in the corner. That's all I have time for. So when we make these, we start by doing the unbridged protease, and we can see here for long-term simulation that is extremely stable in this fold. And then we further stabilize that fold by introducing a click bridge, and in this case also a disulfide bond, but we could just as well have 2 click bridges. So this is today our most active serine protease. It's almost, first of all, it's very stable. We can see that from the molecular dynamics that we do. And it's very easy to synthesize. You can see the purity that we get out here, and the analysis over here shows that this crude product is really just one compound. Even though there are 45 amino acids, and as you can see from the sequence, it has nothing to do with a normal peptide. So we ask, can we actually have activity from this? And here we have a fluorophore sitting on one end of the peptide close to the resin. On the other end we have a quencher. So there's no fluorescence when these two are close to each other. If we come with a scissor, like a protease, and clip this bond down here, we get a fluorescent compound, and that's what we're going to observe. And for a control, we are using one of the most active proteases in the world, which is subtilisin. It's used as a washing powder enzyme, so it has to be very efficient. I think it's quite clear here that you see activity after an hour or so. You see rings around the beads. This means that the enzyme is diffusing in and cleaving the substrate. And after 24 hours, you have a lot of fluorescent beads. But you can see there's some specificity in this cleavage. We now ask, is our enzyme here as good as that? And it is almost as good as the most efficient enzyme out there. You can see after 3 hours, we have some very fluorescent beads. After 24 hours and 7 days, we have complete hydrolysis of some of the beads. So that also means that we have very high selectivity of our protease. After 3 months, that's a long time, but then we have cleavage everywhere. So this is a very good new kind of enzyme that we can produce, and that we are looking into other classes of enzymes at the moment. It looks like this. It has the bridges, it has the active site residues, it has a hydrophobic core, and it has a hydrophilic surface, and that makes it soluble at high concentrations like 5-10 milligrams per milliliter, which is something that you don't often see for larger proteins. Okay, here we are in Stockholm again, and this is the day where you get the medal. So the king comes forward. This is the king of Sweden. He comes forward. He gives you the hand, and he has the medal in the other hand, and you take the medal, and you're standing a little bit like that. Eventually, you get to hold the medal, and you thank you very much. And then he takes back the medal. So you're wondering what happens, but that is because many of the Nobel laureates, they are like, it's 40 years or 30 years ago they made their invention, and something had gone wrong in the meantime. So a lot of the Nobel laureates have forgotten their Nobel prizes in the ceremonial hall over the time. So nowadays you get the Nobel Prize on the last day, and just to make sure that we know what it looks like, this is it. Okay, no more of that. I would like to now turn to molecular recognition, because molecular recognition is where a lot of you should actually put your efforts. Molecular recognition is behind every single action in biology. There's no enzyme that works without a molecular recognition preceding it. There's no antibody that can work without molecular recognition. everything is about molecular recognition. So I would like to state that we don't understand the principles behind the very sophisticated biological molecular recognition yet. There's something missing, otherwise we would be able to calculate it, and we are not. So this is an invention we did, which is trying to simulate what an antibody does with a small molecule. So this small molecule has a structural site, the blue side here, which maintain the structure of the beta hairpin peptide. So this is the only molecular structure I will show as a formula. And it has on the back side residues that we can combinatorialize. So we can put on any amino acids on the back side, and on the front side here, we have structural residues that maintain this structure. So now we have a maintained structure, just like with the antibodies, a maintained structures, and we can modify one side of this molecule. So when we do that by computation, so we do what is called molecular mutational molecular dynamics, we can very rapidly funnel into the low energy interaction between a protein and one of these molecules. And this is the teddy bear or chewing gum that you see here on the top. That is the beta body, and on the bottom you see a protein. This is green fluorescent protein, or in another case, it's one of our immune proteins, which has been labeled with a fluorophore. So we have two fluorescent proteins, and we have two beta bodies that sits on the little beads. So now when we take these polymer beads, and we have two of them here, one with one of the two beta bodies, the other one with the other one, and you can see it only binds to this one. So the GFP that we add here only binds to one of them. Similar, the interleukin that we add down here only binds to the other one. So we have a complete selectivity of interaction with these proteins, and we have developed a completely new method of doing molecular recognition. Furthermore, we can do this with D amino acid. We don't need to use the L amino acids. We can do it with D amino acids, which provide non-immunogenic compounds which recognize without being processed by the organism. So here's an example of a sandwich assay which works extremely well. We have one beta body that sits on the bead, another beta body that swims around with a fluorophore. We mix the two and nothing happens. Then we add the protein that is a glue between the two, and you see immediately we get a very high intensity of fluorescence on these beads, because the one on the bead recruits the protein, and the protein recruits the one from the solution. So that shows you that we have very high specificity of this recognition. 20 nanomolars of this protein is very small. I would now like to have two things at the end here about Alzheimer, because at least in Europe, Alzheimer is a very heavy burden on the health system. Alzheimer is a very unfortunate situation that happens to many of the old people, and with an increasingly older population, this is going to be an increasing problem. So in Alzheimer plaques, like the one we see out here, where it is, there, this is an Alzheimer plaque. We have fibrils that precipitate in the brain. When these fibrils precipitate, there is a toxic effect in the surrounding tissue, in the surrounding neurons, and they disassemble and they die. So this is one of the effects of Alzheimer, and we would like to investigate whether we could prohibit the fibrillation first of all. So here you see a crystal structure of the fibrils, one of the crystal structures of the fibrils, I should say, which is predominant in the plaque. We're taking a cross-section through this fibril. You can see the peptides stack up like that. These are the peptides that are processed in the brain wrongly and then stack up as fibrils. And you can see the fibrils here. We make a cut and we then look at the ending where the fibril is growing and trying to make a beta body that attacks this end and provide an inhibition of the growth. So in order to do this, we would like to also recruit the water in this process, because what we want is solubility. we want this protein to go into solution. So we are now making building blocks that looks like our structural units, but have something that interacts with the water, carries a protective helmet of water with it, and it will then be able to dissolve the fibrils. We are using a natural amino acid, which is glucosaminic acid, and we are just protecting that as a building block. And then we incorporate it in these beta bodies, and these are the 5 beta bodies that we made, designed and synthesized. And you can see how well they fit on the surface of the growth phase. Now, if we look at this, the upper curve here, over here, and a beta 1 to 42, which is a long peptide, it's very fibrillating, and you see this high fibrillation curve that we measure in a biofluorescence technique. When we add our peptides, we have different types of inhibition, but the best one is the 2 that you see here below, 3 and 5. They completely prohibit fibril formation, and we can even dissolve already formed fibrils after a week. So this is a really, really strong evidence that we have some sort of intervenence protocol here. It also works for beta 1 to 40. So this is what it looks like. We are taking a small fragment of the fibril, and there's a water shell and a peptide, and here you see all the different fragments. And what happens is that now you can fall asleep happy because you would know that your brain would squeeze out all this debris during the night. And that is really what is missing when the fibril is not dissolved. So during your REM sleep, your brain shrinks, and there's no harm in that because it's just washing out all the things that you collected during your day. In a similar project, this is a project in which we are trying to actually process these fibrils by enzyme activity. So we were able to make peptides that look like the Alzheimer peptide but bind a catalytically active metal ion. So we were expecting that to cleave the peptide. And it worked beautifully. This is Martin Wolfram's work. It worked beautifully. It cleaved very well the Alzheimer peptides. Then you have small fragments that you can easily wash out. However, it also worked when we took away the catalyst entirely. So it worked by itself, and this is actually very exciting because that means that we have discovered an activity of the Alzheimer peptides never seen before. And here we have cleavage of the Alzheimer peptides in the nucleation site. These are like a lot of peptides that we synthesized, including 1 to 40 and 1 to 42. And we look at the cleavage here in the center. You can see there's a selectivity particular here and for F4, and then there's like cascading between these two cleavage sites. And that's ideal because it's right in the middle of the nucleation site for these fibril formations. And you can follow it. So this is UPLC. Here F0 is, we start here with this, and then we get this one over here, and then we get this one here, and then we get that one here. So we can follow it by LCMS. These are the MSs of the different fragments. And we can see that there is a kinetic development of this. And not only that, if we take an already active autocatalytic cascade reaction and transfer a seed to another solution which is inactive, we get complete hydrolysis within no time. And you can see that here in this, no, not in here, next one. This one just explains what it looks like because we've also done some microscopic images of this Alzheimer fibrillation. We start out by forming donuts, so segments that goes together and form a ring. Eventually they collapse into a linear thing, and you can see many examples of this here. For example, if we go here, you can see a little ring with a small stick on it. The stick eventually forms completely, and then you can see this long fibril is a compilation of strings. So this is a process that occurs normally. And we have this done by three-dimensional atom force microscopy, so we can really see what is going on. And what we think is happening is that the fragments come together and at some point form a very unique proteolytically active substance. This is a problem for the brain because you also find fragments in Alzheimer's brains. You find fragments of NCAM2, which are the molecules that stick the neurons together. And you can imagine how when you're loosening up that, the neurons are not happy and eventually they actually undergo cell death. There's many different toxic factors in this, but I think this is probably one of them. Here we see a beta 1 to 40 after at 25, 12 days, 37, 12 days, nothing happens. If we seed it with a little bit of our compound, gone. And you can see the difference. Here we have the same picture you saw before. Up here you have essentially no fibrils formed. It's only these donuts, a few donuts that are left behind. Which is very good because now we can wash the whole thing out of the brain. So we think that we have an autocatalytic cascade that compete with the fibril formation. If we can enhance that, we have maybe a good way to look at Alzheimer's in the future. Now I want to get back to the young in chemistry because I think that we should start very early with the kids. You are much too old to really learn. Because kids learn, just think of kids learning a language. Takes them no time, like a year from their babies they start to speak, and 2 years they are fluent in their mother tongue. You cannot hear that they don't come from another country. And they learn by images. They learn the whole sentence in the language. The same they do with visual stuff. So if we can teach them chemistry and what it looks like from day one in their school, that would be a fantastic instrument. So I suggest we make this feel for the three-dimensional space of the molecule and the movement of the molecule. A really professional one created by something like LEGO. So I call this MoLego, and I hope that will actually be realized. So the structure of our research funding is important for the quality of the results. Of course, we need fundamental research. That's very important that we have fundamental research that can give us the disruptive discoveries of the future. But we also need applied research that can develop the research that we already have done into applicable items for the society, for the good of society. Those two things are completely independent, and no politician seems to understand this. These are two entirely different functions. So today it looks like that, tomorrow it should look like that. Where we make a decision, this is how much we want to invest in our future, and this is how much we want to invest in earning money right now. And these are actually two entirely different decisions, and they are counteracting if you have it in one big bag. So for you students, I suggest you also look into what future are we looking at. I think if you had learned how temperature affects water evaporation as a child, you would have a very close understanding of what is happening in the global warming. We are breaking the water cycle of the Earth very, very quickly at the moment. The water cycle is completely changed when you increase the temperature by 1.5 to 2 degrees. It really, really changes the amount of water that goes into the air from the oceans. Another thing that happens is because we are warming it up, the cycle of the water is also changed. So the water seems to ascend at the equator. It goes up in the air, it goes out, and therefore you have desert belts on both sides of the equator, and then it comes down out here. As we increase the temperature, this goes further up, further out, and then down. And you can imagine now we have really large amounts of water that comes down where it comes down. So that's why we are getting this contradiction of drought and flooding, drought and flooding, drought and flooding. And there is no rescue if we don't take this seriously right now. So I suggest you as students look into the future of the Earth, because it's your Earth to inherit. I already have gray hair, so for me it doesn't matter that much. So new materials, and this is material that Manat Renil has developed in our laboratory. We can use this kind of material for a lot of things to replace plastic. It's made out of barley and soya oil. We should try to change textiles, make green polymers and so on. We should also look at our processing industry. Can we avoid using solvents in our pharmaceutical industry? We should definitely look in that direction. And then we have here the energy sector. I think we should all go to hydrogen. This electricity is an intermediate stage. Hydrogen is the only solution in the long run for everything. And it can be produced by many different ways. Food. We need food in the future. There's people starving. In this day and age, there's still people starving because of stupid political conflicts. I'll come back to that. Here are the textiles. We have visited a place where they make bamboo textiles. They're fantastic. There's a lot of things we can do with chemistry to develop, soft materials out of something like bamboo. And transport sector, I don't have any chemistry here. It could be steel or whatever, but I have just put Novo Nordisk's new compound, which makes a lot of money in Denmark to pay for the transport development. So we are finally back. We're finally back in Stockholm, and this is on the day of the ceremonial dinner. And here's my wife, and you can see she's very proactive. She went to the Institute of Arts at the Stockholm University, who made 6 dresses for the Nobel Prizes. And she said, I want that one from the chemistry, because that I want to wear tomorrow night at the ceremonial hall. And they looked like shocked, and then they said, yes, because this is a win-win situation. So they made it in 24 hours working constantly. But what you can see here is that it's really artists that made this dress, because the triazole is a 5-membered ring, and here you only see 6-membered rings. So when you dress your wife up like that, there's a big risk, and this risk is that Prince Philip come by, take your wife away from you, and seat her between himself and Prince Daniel. So that was, I was sitting down there in the back somewhere. So that was okay, but it was primarily okay because the next day we went to a very intimate dinner at the Royal Castle, and at the Royal Castle I got the primary seat beside Princess Victoria, the next Queen of Sweden. So with that, I would like to thank you. I would like to thank all these people who have been involved in development of what resulted in the Nobel Prize, and also these chemistries that I have showed you here today. I would like to thank my family, in particular Phaedra, for fantastic discussions about science over the time. And I would also like to thank my whole family for their patience the patience when I was at work in the 90s, because there was a lot to do there, as well as in the family, of course. And maybe my priorities were a little off at the time. But I'm very happy to be here today, and I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Meldal, for sharing your knowledge and passion with us. It has been an unforgettable experience. Now, it's our privilege to honor our esteemed guest with a token of love. I request Dr. Ajit Kumar Ji, Festival Director, Global Science Festival, Kerala, to present the memento to Professor Morten P. Meldal, and I invite Professor Meldal to receive the memento. As we approach the culmination of this remarkable event, I am honored to invite Dr. C. Anandaramakrishnan, Director, CSIR, National Institute for Interdisciplinary Science and Technology, to express the vote of thanks.
Good evening to all. First of all, I like to thank Professor Morten Meldal. Really wonderful talk, sir. Actually, he narrated how the way he got the Nobel Prize, including the function. Second one is that in which he got the Nobel Prize by the click chemistry. Both the story he narrated in the amazing way. Thank you so much for mesmerizing us. And also I like to thank Sanjay Behari, sir. He has narrated success is based on the failures. He set the tone for the today's talk. Thank you so much, sir. And also KP Sudhir, putting a lot of effort. Just day before yesterday, we had a meeting at CSIR NIST Trivandrum and honoring the Sandhi Swarup Patnakar awardees. Now today this meeting, another couple of days, Science Congress at Kasaragod. How much you are disseminating the science in the state is really amazing. And also I like to thank Dr. Ratish Krishna, convener, program coordinator for this whole program. Really has taken the science in this level. Really thank you so much for whole team who have put up the show behind today's event. Thank you so much for all the participants who are listening this. Thank you so much.
This concludes our program. As we depart, let us carry the inspiration from Professor Meldal's words and continue to explore the wonders of science. I thank everyone who joined us on this intellectual journey. Thank you.